Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on tonight's very special state of the art radio program. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, and as always, we're joined with Jeremy Grapington here. And folks, as this is the final boarding call, why don't you go ahead and claim your seats, fasten your seat belts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while Jeremy and I delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Folks, no one can deny what we are seeing in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours is anything short of a complete attempt to destroy all that we hold near and dear. The Fabian socialists are frothing at the mouth at this opportunity to tear our nation apart at the seams. As Jeremy and I have oft-times reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence the Wright Flyer, the Fabian socialists are directly and deliberately attacking our traditions and institutions. This is all part of their concerted effort to redefine what it is to be an American citizen. This is truly shameful. As I am sure you are all aware, the United States Constitution includes the Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments to it. The First Amendment is designed to protect the freedom of religion as well as the free exercise thereof. And it's really important to what we're going to be hitting on with tonight's topic, as the Founding Fathers considered this as such an important and integral part of the Bill of Rights that it took the preeminent spot within said Bill of Rights. Yet now there are two bills before the California State House which are seeking to target California's Christian universities. This is all done under the guise of protecting the LGBTQ STFULMAO community.
WTF.
It's important to recall that the great visionary Zygmunt Dobbs warned in his magnus opus, Canes at Harvard, that the Fabian socialists liked to couch their words in meaningless fluff. On top of this, he said that they would engage in any sort of perversion in order to desensitize society thereto. This is the sort of destruction that the Fabian socialists love and adore. It's because such maneuvers are designed to destabilize the current system of polity. Every left-wing form of government must destroy the system of polity that preceded it. The reason being is that they realize they cannot win in the marketplace of ideas. One of the California bills in particular, AP 1888, is designed to strip California's Christian colleges of their state funding. If they don't stand in line with the LGBTQ community, then they will be stripped of all state funding. And folks, this is not only a clear violation of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, but also a classic example of a tyranny of the minority. This is why we say that words matter. The United States is a representative republic. Representative republics recognize the rights of the sovereign individual and seek to protect them from these sorts of nefarious attacks.
Well, it's extortion is what it is.
Of
That's what it
course.
boils down to.
Right.
Again, this is just another play and tactic utilized by the Fabians and the progressives to implement their agenda. They force people to comply or capitulate with what they want them to do in their agenda, and if they don't, they strong-arm them into it, and eventually either the people cave and give in, or they fade away. They no longer exist. So, it's not only is it extortion, but you can look at blackmail, any other form. And again, what is the purpose of this? I'll tell you.
To deprive us of our liberties.
Well, yes, ultimately that's their end goal, but it's incrementalization is what it is.
Well, of course, the
And
Fabian
they're-
socialist.
Sure, and again, this is them interjecting something that A, Adolf Hitler was absolutely against homosexuality. He had homosexuals shot dead in the streets of Nazi
Yet he was
Germany and other
surrounded with
countries.
them. Yet he was
Yeah,
surrounded with them like Ernst Rohn and
right.
th-
So
that dichotomy.
it's this whole elitist mentality: do as I say, not as I do. But they do this and interject this evil seed so that they can continue on with their tenets of revisionism, indoctrination, and political correctness. Because those three entities working in concert with each other is ultimately what leads to their end goal of depriving us of our liberties. You erase the history, therefore people have nothing to refer back to stand on their rights. You indoctrinate people so that they know only what you tell them to know, and then you do it with political correctness and as a form of shaming or punishment for people exercising their rights. It's ridiculous.
Well, it gets worse. The companion bill to the previously mentioned bill, which was AP 1888, is SB 1146. This one is all about forcing these Christian institutions to tell their students that because they're sectarian, meaning religious, it means that they're discriminatory in nature. Folks, there is only one word to be used to describe this: horrific. The bill in question here is a direct violation of the First Amendment's free exercise clause. Once again, we see that state government is attempting to replace religion with the altar of the state itself. Well, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, demand that this come to an immediate and swift end. It's these sorts of disingenuous and unconstitutional bills that prove all of the problems currently facing the United States are rooted in a departure from strict adherence to the tenets and terms contained within the Constitution. The only way we are ever going to return to the sanity of this nation is to return to the Constitution. Of course, the idiot savants who created these pieces of California legislation would claim and decry that this is discriminatory. I have but one thing to say to them: go to hell. No, seriously, go straight to hell. Just who the hell are these state legislators to tell the constituents of their state how to exercise their religion or where to go? And who are they to tell private educational institutions what they have to do or not do with respect to who they are as an institution? Folks, the very sort of thing that we're seeing here is the type of tyranny that our founding fathers abhorred. Yet we see that it is becoming commonplace throughout these 50 states of ours. Indeed, these wannabe potentates think that they have created a fiefdom unto themselves. Let's prove them wrong by demanding that they return to strict adherence to the fundamental tenets contained within the four corners of the United States Constitution. Jeremy, I have to admit that this is the sort of story that gets my blood boiling. I say this because it goes against all that we hold near and dear, and it shows that this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours is in dire straits. And to think that there are still people who claim that penultimate concerns, for example, the economy, trounce the Constitution. These sorts of people really do not understand exactly what's happening within our country. If we're not careful, we are destined to lose our rights forever.
You know, I don't understand why people want to take these minor issues like the economy. Folks, the economy really is a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. Because if we didn't have our Constitution, if we did not have our supreme law of the land, you would have nothing. That's just the way it is. Now, with this particular story, with these two pieces of crumpled up used tampon wrappings called legislation from California. Uh, you know, this again is the Fabians making that ultimate push. Remember, way back, Randy, through history, Thomas Jefferson wrote an article called the Danbury Baptist Letters.
Right.
In the Danbury Baptist Letters, this is what he was warning about, and this is what he preached against. No state-sanctioned churches or religions, meaning that it was up to the individual, or up to the individual churches, or the congregations, so on and so forth, to exercise their religion as they believed it, and they chose to do so. Since these Fabians couldn't do it with the churches, which was their ultimate scheme, now they're doing it with the schools, and they've been doing it with the schools for so long. This just happens to be kind of a double whammy for them, going after Christian colleges and universities.
It's as though they're taking off the veil. They're removing the veil to expose their true intention, which is a Marxist type intention. If you recall, Karl Marx loathed and despised any type of organized religion. He called it the opiate of the masses. We have to keep this sort of thing in mind, because what they're trying to do is attack the pillars of society. Again, it reminds me of that old Chinese adage that the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. They want a tyranny of false unity or uniformity. But that's not who we are, either as a nation or as a people. It goes against all that we hold as sacrosanct in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. It's extremely dangerous what we see unfurling in California right now.
Yeah, and it's just going to get more dangerous the longer it lasts. When people stand by and do nothing, to bring up another adage, when they came for the blind, I spoke up and said nothing. When they came for the deaf, I spoke up and said nothing. When they came for the religious, I spoke up I never spoke up and said nothing. So then when they came for me, there was no one left to speak for me.
Right.
And that's what's happening. That's the road we're traveling down. So the longer we sit and wait on this, it's kind of like a sucking chest wound. And it just seems that everybody wants to be putting Band-Aids on a sucking chest wound. You can't do that.
Well, it's like we're hemorrhaging our rights and our liberties.
Yeah. And we're just looking to, pop a couple of Flintstone vitamins, put a Band-Aid on it, and walk it off. Guess what? It's not going to happen. You have to address the issue head on.
Yep. Yeah. Now, according to thecollegefix.com, proponents of these bills claim that they would prevent the California granting system from giving sectarian institutions a license to discriminate. What a load of bovine excrement. This is the sort of madness that would have gotten you tarred and feathered at the time of the foundation of our country. Yet these people simply do not care. Folks, again, this is why we claim to be the new resistance. This is where the doctrines of political correctness and historical revisionism meet at a crossroads. They are all trying to rewrite what it is that made this nation great throughout our relatively brief yet illustrious history. Therefore, we must be ever vigilant in our response to these efforts to tear our nation apart. This is why we must stand together in solidarity and unity to wholeheartedly reject this nonsense. Liberty or death, 6-2 or fight. What it boils down to is an attempt to punish someone for holding a series of beliefs. As we've always warned, with respect to the Fabian socialists, they are about controlling thought. Since they are perfectly aware that they cannot win in the marketplace of ideas, they move to strike at it, anything that stands against them, that is, from made-up claims. This is also why they use semantics and attempt to obfuscate the truth. However, the truth always has a way of shining through in the end. Another important aspect that we can see from all of this is that a minority is targeting the rights of the majority. Again, this is why the United States of America was designed as a representative republic and not as a democracy. However, we know that in these institutions of education, the historical revisionists are not teaching that the United States is a republic. Rather, they want us all to believe that she is a democracy, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth.
Here's the other thing I want to point back to with regard to these individuals, trying to silence this stuff, or trying to silence other individuals, the minority speaking out just because they believe a certain way. Because a Christian university wants to teach things in accordance with natural law, in accordance with the Word of God and Christianity, somebody takes offense to it, so they want to shut them up.
Yeah.
Remember that incident that happened down in around your neck of the woods, Randy, with the Branch Davidians?
Yeah.
David Koresh?
Yeah, all of that.
See, they were doing nothing wrong but exercising their First Amendment rights. Now, there was accusations and allegations made, all of which never stuck because there was no substantial evidence to prove it. Therefore, the allegations of child abuse, child neglect, pedophilia, illegal procurement and possession of illegal firearms, so on and so forth, none of that came to fruition. There was no evidence to prove those allegations were true. In fact,
of course not.
In fact, I believe that the Child Protective Service Agency of the state of Texas actually found that there was nothing wrong with that was going on there. No warrants were executed on David Koresh or any of the other members.
Well, here's the thing, Jeremy. They could have gotten him
not legally,
when he
anyways.
went to. They could have gotten him when he went to Jack and Jill Donuts.
Yeah.
The late Sheriff Harwell had stated, pleaded, begged with the feds to let him question Koresh when he went into Waco from Elk, Texas, to go and have his morning donuts that he had every morning. But no, the feds were gung-ho. They wanted to have this power grab, much like what we saw with the BLM, much like what we see with respect to Barack Hussein Obama and ignoring our fundamental and inalienable rights. And yes, folks, we will be getting into that a little bit deeper as the show progresses. But we see that the feds wanted to show that they were the supreme power. They think that they are the complete arbiters of authority and control. When you actually look at our Constitution, it's exactly the opposite.
Well,
we, the people, are the ultimate sovereigns.
Yeah. The feds didn't even have any authority or jurisdiction to be there. It was
Right.
Sheriff Harwell's jurisdiction. Now,
Right.
this is what people don't understand when it comes to certain law enforcement agencies. Your local police departments are not founded by the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that local police departments or law enforcement agencies can be created, except for the Sheriff's Department. And why is that? Because the Sheriff's Department is the only law enforcement officer in this country that is elected into office. Therefore, that makes it constitutional. Why? Because if he's elected, that means that people are exercising their constitutional rights to vote. It is at the will of the people, from the supreme and ultimate authority of them, granted and endowed to them under the Constitution. No other law enforcement agency or officer is elected into office.
Except for certain city constables. But again, that's created at the municipal level.
Right, that's done under the state's constitutions. But
Right.
under the United States Constitution,
It's only
the sheriff. So therefore, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, they were the biggest. All of them.
Soup. All of the alphabet soup.
All of the alphabet soups. They all came in and usurped the authority of the only person who had jurisdiction to execute any kind of warrants or even investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would they do this? Well, the ATF, at that point in time, it was known as the ATF, was scheduled or possibly looking at being defunded. So why did they want to? They wanted to do it as a show of force.
Right.
Again, this is what Fabians do. When their lights are about to be extinguished, they want to pull something so extravagant to say, nope, we're going to give a show of force and you're going to capitulate to what we want you to do. It's no different than what happened in Elk, Texas, which is no different from what's going on with these Christian universities in California. It's the government agencies and these Fabians interjecting and doing something so brash and bold, infringing upon sovereign citizens to affect their agenda.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, the other amazing thing about this is it actually violates the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause as well.
It does.
I have a feeling this is something that the California legislatures didn't even consider when they proposed these disastrous bills. However, this is why it is so important to foster a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our United States Constitution. In so doing, we gain the tools necessary to protect ourselves from this sort of disingenuous and diabolical plotting and scheming. Remember, it's our responsibility to prevent these sorts of tyrannical actions from ever going into effect. A tyranny of the minority is a very real threat to our liberty as a nation and a people. This is why we must remain ever vigilant to these efforts to erode our fundamental and inalienable rights. Remember, folks, without our rights, we are left with nothing. That is what the Fabian socialists plan to do to us. They want to strip us and deny us all of our fundamental and inalienable rights which were endowed to us by our Creator. The truth is, they cannot do this, nor shall we ever allow them to do so. We, the popular sovereigns of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic, will stand shoulder to shoulder to take our country back from the insanity which currently grips it. There is no force on earth big enough to stop the American people. This is why we were able to overcome any and every obstacle placed in our path throughout our history. Again, this is why we are the new resistance. We see these threats increasing in number and scope. Therefore, we must grow extremely defiant. Failure to do so exposes us to the full loss of our rights and liberties. We cannot afford to allow that to happen.
I'm going to take that all a step further as well. There's another provision of the Constitution that is quite apropos here. Privileges and immunities. These individuals are being, in a sense, prosecuted or targeted for exercising their rights. That's exactly what's happening. Now, speaking with the tyrannical regime of the minority, Thomas Jefferson said it best. And what he said is I can't put it any other way, so I'm going to try and quote him as best as I can. The only thing that tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to stand by and do nothing.
Yeah, idleness of conscience is something that we have to be very careful about. This is what Zygmunt Dobbs had warned about, again, in his magnus opus of Keynes at Harvard. He said that what the Fabian socialists are essentially banking on is that the American people, your average, hardworking, decent, red-blooded American citizen, is going to be so preoccupied with mere sustenance, sustaining their way of life, because of overzealous regulation, that they're not going to have the strength, they're not going to have the political capital, they're just not going to have the overarching energy to combat this. And the Fabian socialists always couch this in intellectually disingenuous terms. Things like, oh, we're doing this for diversity. We're doing this to protect diversity. But is it truly diversity? When you pause and take a step back and look upon this in an objective fashion, I don't think anyone in their right mind could call this diversity. There's nothing diverse about it. It is perversion. That's what it is. It is sheer perversion. It has no relation to our values, our traditions, or our institutions. And if we think back to the summer of political correctness and moral relativism, the summer of 2015, we saw that in the Obergefell decision that they pushed the start of this. Folks, that unleashed the floodgates to create this sort of slippery slope that we're facing right now. Because if you give them an inch, they're going to take the whole damn country.
It's rant time, folks. I'm going to touch a little bit on diversity here. I'll tell you what, all of you individuals out there listening, you want to latch on to this politically correct, psychobabbled, nonsensical crap called diversity. Here's the deal. You want diversity? Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Why don't you jump on a train and go straight to hell, and then come back, jump in your favorite automobile, and go straight to hell. Then come back, and then climb into a plane, and fly it straight to hell, and then come back. There's your diversity. Because what you're talking about with diversity is another bastardized version of you Fabian progressives and leftists hijacking the English language.
Yeah, it goes back to that dangerous game of semantics that we've been warning about since our first episode aired back on September 11th of 2015. There is a reason that we say that this is a major problem, that it is a major catalyst that is threatening not only our popular sovereignty, but our way of life and our nation as a whole. It's because that is what the Fabian socialists are all about. They are all about destroying that which preceded them, because they know that they do not have the intellectual capacity to win in a logic-based argument, because their logic is theft by any other name. I mean, there is no way to sugarcoat that. You can't candy coat that, because it is a glaring, open, and obvious reality that faces us. And it's as Alexis Tocqueville said, that socialism of any flavor and any stripes is just a form of New Age feudalism. Now, I know that we've mentioned this on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, but I think it bears repeating here. Because what they're trying to do, as you can see with this attack on these California sectarian universities, these Christian universities, is they're trying to deprive people of their ability to think for themselves. Why? Because they want to control the facets of our lives from cradle to grave. That's the same thing that the sort of caste system that was created in medieval feudalism was all about.
Yeah, and again, the more we sugarcoat things, that's just us giving way and giving real estate to them to keep encroaching upon our rights with political correctness. We're not going to sugarcoat anything here. We're not going to fluff it up, make it taste like gummy bears and lollipops and whatever else, especially when it comes to the intellectual capacity of these Fabians. Are they smart individuals? To a certain degree, yes, they are. But what
in
makes
a devious way.
What in a devious way, but what makes them dangerous is because they're patient. They will outwait anybody else. They will implement something, and people will attack it, and they'll pull back, and they'll wait, and they'll wait, and they'll wait. And then when they launch that next attack on that exact same issue, or whatever that agenda is, that flavor of the week for them, it goes full frontal, no holds barred, right in your face, and then guess what? You're caught off guard. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. That's how they operate.
Well, yes, they lull you into a false sense of security,
Sure.
because they want you to let go of your own mental faculties. They want you to be lulled to sleep. It's because they base themselves off of the Roman general Fabius. Remember that the Roman general Fabius was the general who defeated the scourge of Rome. Mm-hmm. That was the Carthaginian general Hannibal. And his whole idea was never to engage Hannibal in frontal assaults. That is what had wiped out so many Roman legions preceding him. Instead, he wanted to draw Hannibal away from his supply lines through incremental little skirmishing attacks. It was basically an early example of guerrilla-style warfare. Mm-hmm. And then when he was far enough away into hostile territory without supplies, you do a pincer maneuver and you destroy them. That was what they did. And it's also reflective in their iconography, this patience. Their original iconography was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Of course, folks, that is a direct reference to Satan.
Yes. Now,
That tells you all you need to know about that movement.
and here's the thing: the whole point behind all of that is Hannibal was drawn out of his comfort zone. We, the people, generally speaking, as a nation, our comfort zone has shifted. It's shifted from maintaining, understanding, and applying and exercising our constitutional rights and defending them to getting lulled into this false sense of security of thinking that somebody else can do it for us.
That's to put us on the constant defensive.
Yes, but people are outside of their true comfort zone, that of being a sovereign wielder of authority.
And that automatically puts them on the defensive.
Yes.
And, folks, it goes back to that other old adage, the best defense is a good offense. But when you look at the gutless opposition party or the GOP, they are not offensive in any way. Well, they are offensive in that they aren't standing up to these diabolical efforts that have been foisted onto us by the Barack Hussein Obama regime that has been furthering this Fabian socialist agenda at breakneck speed. And that is what has caused this sort of blind rage and fury that has dominated the 2016 presidential election cycle and landscape. That is what allowed the ascendancy of Donald J. Trump. That, in unison with the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, just giving him free coverage without any thought as to what his detrimental, deleterious, moronic, and idiotic statements might have on the body politique of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. It is completely disastrous to see what is unfurling before us, and to know that this nightmare of a train wreck has been foisted on us intentionally. That just makes it all the worse. That adds insult to injury.
Randy, going back to our show last night, we talked about our rights being inalienable and endowed to us by our Creator, meaning that the God Almighty is the only one that could take those rights away from us without due process. And again, this goes right back into this lulled sense of security, this false sense of security, this false comfort zone that has been created because of revisionist history, political correctness, immoral relativism,
amoral relativism,
whatever, all of those things have created this. And just like with the media, even Donald Trump fell into the trap.
Of course.
He even fell into the trap because here's the thing. He says, they're giving me free coverage. He's gloating about it. He thinks it's great. He thinks that they're doing it because they have no other choice. But
he doesn't realize
just
that
like
they're
what you
enough rope to hang himself.
Exactly, because what's going to happen? They're giving him the coverage. They're going to take it away. And when they take away his media coverage, when they take away that limelight that he is basking and bathing in, and thickening his Cheeto-stained face, because the bulbs are turned up just a little too hot, he's not going to have anything. He's going to be left standing an empty shell inside an empty suit. And that's all it's going to be. But he is so fixated on his own egotistical, maniacal crap. I'm a winner. I built a tower. My hair doesn't look great. Blah, blah, blah. Pay no attention to my hands. He has allowed himself to be set up for failure.
Folks, our next story comes out of a website called naturalnews.com. In an article by L.J. Devon, they claim that after having imprisoned the Oregon ranchers who dared to stand in defiance to the Bureau of Land Manipulation and Malarkey, President Peel and Squeal Obama is planning to use his pen and phone again. This time, he's seeking to give the BLM unlimited powers to take away any sort of land that they want. Folks, this is, again, a typical tactic of the Fabian socialists. After all, one of the central tenets of our fundamental and inalienable rights is the right to keep and hold property. This is unacceptable to the Fabian socialists. They want to return us to a new age form of feudalism. Again, pointing back to Alexis Tocqueville, he warned us that this is exactly what every form and flavor of socialism was about. He reasoned that this was due to the fact that they attempt to control every facet of our daily lives. That's very similar to the system of polity and society that dominated medieval Europe, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier. But I, for one, reject this sort of medieval system. Furthermore, I'm certain that the vast majority of our cherished listening passengers and audience members also reject such a system. It has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States. Yet, we see the president, the Chiquita-in-chief himself, is fully committed to this sort of horrific system. Well, enough is enough. As we've stated previously on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, our rights are not up for negotiation, nor are they open to be stolen from us in such a hostile, ham-handed fashion. However, it once again fully demonstrates just how vigilant we have to be with any attempt to deprive us of our sacred liberties. Give them any ground and they'll attempt to destroy you. Hey, Obama, we here at the Wright Flyer say with the utmost respect, Farouk, you go to hell.
Go to hell.
Please do not pass go. Just go straight to hell.
This attempt and this unconstitutional granting and delegation of powers to the Bureau of Land Manipulation, I mean, it's a direct assault on the Fifth Amendment. A direct assault on the Fifth Amendment. Not just the Constitution as a whole, but specifically on the 15th or the Fifth Amendment and even the 14th Amendment as well. So I don't understand why people are not railing about this. I'm sure they will be, but are they just going to take to social media and sit on the computers and sit there and, I'm mad at the government, I need to do this, I can't stand it, they're violating my rights? Folks, I've seen so many people online and offline, face to face talking with people. I know my rights are the violation of my rights, this and that. And then when I ask them where their rights are found in the Constitution, they can't tell me.
Idea.
They have no idea.
No idea.
If somebody is going to say you're violating my rights, you had better damn well know where your rights are. Which enumeration they are, where they are in the Constitution, and exactly how they are to be applied. And what the intent and purpose behind each is. Mm-hmm. If you cannot do that, then I don't want to hear your rights are being violated. I don't want to hear people crying. Yes, I'm going off on another rant here, folks. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of people just running off at the mouth, all bark and no bite. You want your rights protected, you want your rights to be secured, and you don't want them violated? Do something about it. Do something about it. Hold those individuals accountable, legally accountable, for violating your rights. We have 2 federal laws that prohibit this. 2 federal laws. Conspiracy.
Finding any prosecutor that would go forward with it, that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's something else that needs to be addressed and will be addressed all in due time. But if we the people know what tools we have to properly maintain our rights. See, knowledge is power, folks. You have all these tools. Let's say everything you have is battery operated. Well, guess what the battery is in the battery charger? It's your knowledge. It's your understanding. It's your capability of being able to apply that power. Those two federal laws that I was speaking of are both right in sequential order of each other. Under Title 18 U.S. Code, first one, Section 241, which is conspiracy against rights, and Section 242, the deprivation of rights under color of law. And you can even follow that up with the third law under Title 42, Section 1983. That is your civil remedy for your rights being violated. You have 2 criminal remedies and 2 civil remedy, or 1 civil remedy.
Of course, what the government is doing here with respect to the Bureau of Land Management, Manipulation, and Malarkey is abusing the term public property. In fact, in our westerly-most states, the federal government owns approximately 89 to 90% of the land. Folks, that is preposterous. No wonder these ranchers are up in arms. I don't blame them.
Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, on top of all of this, President Obama is attempting to work around the powers enumerated to Congress in the Constitution. Again, folks, this is why we say we need to return to strict adherence to the fundamental tenets contained within the 4 corners of the United States Constitution. Unless and until we return to the Constitution, we will never see a return to sanity in this once very thriving representative republic of ours. This is non-negotiable. Of course, Trump doesn't get that, which explains why we can never support him. Executive orders were never meant to be implemented in such a fashion. Obama clearly understands this. He just simply doesn't care. This means that the American people must do their duty and obligation by refusing to acquiesce to his demands. Again, this is why we applaud the efforts of the ranchers who stood in solidarity and unity against governmental tyranny and oppression. They serve as an example for the rest of us. Folks, we fully understand that this is a very heavy burden to take upon your shoulders. We don't like that we have to do it either. Nevertheless, our founding fathers expected us to do exactly this. Therefore, we must do our part. Otherwise, we stand to lose everything, and that is intolerable and unacceptable.
Excuse me. Again, I, being of good conscience, cannot simply stand by and do nothing. My conscience will not allow me to stand by and do nothing. As is the same with you, Randy.
Of course.
This is why we do this. This is why we have these episodes that we have, these shows. This is why we do our blog, our audio blog. This is why we've taken to Twitter and Facebook, even though we never even with Twitter and Facebook and social media. I think they're some of the stupidest things ever created. Why? Because the way people are using them is stupidity. I don't care what somebody had for breakfast for 7 days straight. I could care less. It doesn't concern me. What I care about is when we have people that are following our show and following us, and we are following them. The civil discourse that happens between us. I care that individuals like one of our followers, Tweetheart, talks about, brings up issues of this is going on, worries about these things, brings them to the forefront so that they can be addressed. Other individuals, Ava Armstrong, the list goes on and on and on. That's what it was supposed to be used for. Not divulging, what color of choked up, after, a 4-day drinking binge. We don't care. We don't care. What we care about is the securement and the perpetuity of our republic. And when we have individuals engaging in this, asking questions, even disagreeing on a civil fashion, in a civil form, in order to have that discourse to change each other's minds or to get more of a clarity where each other stands. That's what our founding fathers did, our framers did at the Constitutional Convention in 1787. That's why we have our shared Constitution, because of that. Were they ready to roll up the sleeves and have knockdown dragouts? Absolutely. They were willing to take it a step further. George Mason was ready to revolt against our established government that we had at that time under the Articles of Confederation. Him and about 12 other individuals.
And not just the Articles of Confederation, they were ready to go to war over the Constitution itself.
Absolutely.
If it didn't have a Bill of Rights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And justifiably so.
Now, it's important that we recall that the notion of public property has been abused by charlatans such as Harry Reid. That was the cornerstone of the first conflict between the Bundys and the BLM. The government sought to trample the Bundys' rights to enrich Harry and his son through corrupt sale of so-called public land. Again, this is all violative of our sovereign rights. We must always be vigilant with respect to our rights. As Jeremy and I have oftentimes repeated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, if we lose our rights, we lose everything. The government seeks the power over life and death as well as our liberties. We must never grant them such carte blanche powers. That's been their goal for the past century and a half. We don't mention these things as a form of fear-mongering. Rather, we bring it to your attention as a call to action. Only we are endowed with the authority to put a conclusive end to these sorts of violations. Every day, we see these nefarious Fabian socialists are concocting some new diabolical scheme to assault our liberties. Yet there really isn't anything new about what they're attempting to do. It's the tried and true methods of those who are the enemies of liberty and humanity. That's right, folks. These people are the enemies of humanity. There's really no other way to describe them. The longer we allow them to fester within society, the harder it will be to undo their twisted work. There can be no question that the fruits of their label are the works of evil. Humanity naturally seeks to be free, whereas government naturally seeks to dominate. We are the watchmen who are tasked with preventing governmental tyranny. Consequently, we may never rest on our laurels.
I'm going to make another analogy here, and I've used this one in the past, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. All this intrusion, this invasion onto our rights, this infringement upon our rights, it's no different than in the middle of the night, you hear glass breaking, your front door being kicked in, your spouse and your children are nestled away, sleeping soundly in their beds, and if you allow the forfeiture of your rights, if you do not maintain them, if you are willing to give them up by abandoning your principles, it would be no different than you meeting an intruder at your door after they kicked it in and then escorting them to each and every room in your home for them to have their way with and ultimately possibly kill your family.
Mm-hmm.
The United States of America, this republic, this great republic, and yes, it is still great, contrary to what the quaff says. It is still great. It doesn't need to be made great again. It needs to be made greater than what it is. America needs to be made smart again.
Folks,
that's what needs to happen.
The Washington Times has put out a piece that will really get your blood boiling. Obama's Veterans Affairs Secretary, Robert McDonald, compared veterans waiting in line for critical treatment to long lines at Disneyland. This is insulting. These brave souls put their lives on the line to secure liberty for us all. Yet McDonald trivializes their plight. Hey, Bobby, do us all a favor and go to hell. This VA fiasco shows us a true glimpse in what we could expect in an universal healthcare system like that advocated by both presumptive nominees. If we treat our best and brightest in such a fashion, just how in the hell do you think the system would treat ordinary citizens? The answer isn't pretty, folks. We know they don't give a damn about our well-being. As we've stated before, this is all about power and manipulation. If you ever needed a poignant example of why we shouldn't trust the government to micromanage our daily lives, this is it. They are corrupt, arrogant, and stupid. Worse still, they take pride in such ludicrous positions as trivializing the pain and suffering of our veterans. Folks, this should turn your stomachs. We shouldn't treat our veterans with such disrespect. Yet, this has become the new norm in the United States. Barack Hussein Obama doesn't respect or value anything of true value or importance. He only cares about that for which he lusts, power. In fact, his entire regime has been nothing but a series of perpetual power grabs. Enough is enough. We have to put an end to all of this crap.
But people are willing to abandon their principles and throwing all their support behind somebody who sees no value in their principles, if they actually even had any rooted in the Constitution, because he sees no value in the Constitution. So now they're wanting to replace one tin pot dictator and power-hungry despot with another. And then when you try to explain that to them, they get all butthurt and their panties in a wad and start crying about this and that. And then they say, well, if you don't support him, then you're obviously voting for Hillary. I'm sorry, but here's the thing, folks. This is how this works, and this is the only way it works. I'm going to vote on my principles, which is the stem of my conscience. My conscience and my principles, both of being of sound and good nature, neither mirror those of the quaff Donald Trump or the whore of Babylon Hillary Clinton. So therefore, if I don't vote for one, I surely could not vote for the other, but yet I'm going to vote my principles. And it's my vote, mine, my right, my vote, and there is nobody walking on this earth big enough to tell me how to vote. I'm not telling other people how to vote. I will never tell other people how to vote. If they want to cast their vote for one or the other or whomever they want to vote for, fine, that's their right. But the caveat is, when it blows up in your face and it comes back to bite you, and you come back crying to me, I should have listened to you, you were right in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. At that point, I'm going to pull out a ticket that says, go to hell.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy, I can hear it already. The shrill voices of the Trumpidians. They're going to say that we can expect to see changes to the VA situation from Trump. To support this, they'll point to that bigly amount of funds he raised for America's veterans when he ducked that Fox News presidential candidate debate. But we know for a fact that Trump has fudged the numbers on the amount of money he claims to have raised for our vets. Folks, you really can't make this stuff up. Again, we have to stop looking for some messianic figure. Our founding fathers expected us to act for ourselves. This is why we were endowed with the authority of popular sovereigns. That is a very significant position of power. It's something that the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media don't want us to think about. They think they've gotten their way, as they have again selected the presumptive nominee of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. Folks, as the new resistance, we remind you that we will hold all of these charlatans accountable. Sacred honor is going to become a linchpin of society again. In so doing, we are taking the first step towards returning America to sanity. We will never relent. When the government fails to fear the people, that's when we face tyranny. That's the state of affairs in our nation right now. The government thinks that it is in a secure enough of a position to insult us on a daily basis. Let's remind them exactly who it is that forms the basis of power in America. It's time to tell the government, no, go to hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 4 of the most powerful words in the English language.
It really is.
No, go to hell. You can't talk to me that way.
I just did.
Yeah. And there's nothing they're going to be able to do to stop me. What are they going to do? Come after my First Amendment right? Really? Them and what army?
Go over well.
Them and what army? Because this is how it works. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to do what I want to do. I can do that because I understand what the ramifications are and what the consequences are of exercising my rights. And furthermore, I'm fully aware and willing to accept those consequences. That's called personal responsibility. I will have no problem standing in front of the Chiquita in chief, in front of Donaldus, my quaff is kind of tizzy today, Trumpolini, or anybody else. Hell, folks, I wouldn't even have a problem standing in front of Ted Cruz, and if he uttered something that was unconstitutional or had some kind of idea that was contrary to the Constitution, I would tell him the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of the Trump fiasco with respect to the veterans funding issue, we see that he's come up with another excuse. Does that surprise you? Doesn't surprise me.
No.
This time, he's basically blaming it on his rich friends who were supposedly responsible for the fundraising. Folks, this is hardly different than the Obama regime blaming every problem on someone else.
Wait a second. Are these his same rich friends that never get audited? And nobody wants to see their tax returns. I'm being audited, so I can't give up my tax returns. I don't know what it is, how many years it goes back. I just know it's a significant amount. I can tell you that.
But at what point does it end? Yeah. That's the problem. There's no end in sight. We've oft times warned on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that Trump is a fraud. Folks, like the Obama regime calling the waiting in lines for veterans to receive health care is the same as a trip to Disney frickin' land, Trump blames other people's money for the fiasco that was that publicity stunt of his, all because he didn't want to debate Ted Cruz and was afraid of Megyn Kelly. Come on. It doesn't change the fact that he was lying about the numbers in the first place. I don't think this man is capable of being honest to save his life. Is this really the best that the gutless opposition party can do for their nominee? The American people demand better than this. This would explain why the party is more divided now than ever before. Trump simply isn't cutting it for the vast majority of Americans. He's already admitted that he would trample all of our fundamental and inalienable rights. That essentially means that he's really no different than the Democrats. As we've said before, he's adopted the iconography of the Fabian socialists, that of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Aren't we all tired of this sort of chicanery? Our nation is in the turmoil of an identity crisis coupled with a slew of constitutional crises. At some point, the onus of this falls on us to fix it. In fact, it was our duty to fix this from the start. It's not too late. We have to push to create a groundswell of support for our Constitution.
You know, and I've heard people say, well, the Constitution, Obama's trampling it, and he's been doing it for so long, and nobody's doing
Since
this.
when did
that.
two wrongs make a right? Since when did two wrongs make a right?
And this is my point. They're shifting the blame. They don't want to hear it about their poster boy being at fault for his own transgressions. They want to shift the blame. Well, Obama's been trampling the Constitution. Nobody's been doing it. You know why? Because people are feckless. They have no testicular fortitude. That's why. And enough is enough. When are we going to grow a set and start using them? I mean, seriously, folks. Enough is enough. You want your country and your republic to stay intact? Do something. Take action. Do something. Now, people will say, "Oh, you're calling. This is a call for arms. You're calling for an overthrow of the government." Not in the least bit. Not in the least bit. What this is, as Randy said, this is a call to action. This is a stern warning. We have been giving this warning for the past 10.5 months. And we're going to continue to warn people, all while at the same time taking action. The action we are taking is bringing the information and the facts to individuals to empower them.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and it falls upon us. It has to. As popular sovereigns, we are couched with duties, obligations, and responsibilities, not only to the Constitution, but to our fellow sovereign citizens.
And our posterity. And our future generations. That's what makes us.
Yes, we were positioned to do this. We were destined to do this. That is part of our birthright. That is part of the greatest inheritance of any people on the face of the earth that we have, which is none other than the United States Constitution. And yet I've heard so many people all throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle try and say that the Constitution is some quaint, antiquated document. These are the same people that are trying to say that it is the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party. You know what I have to say to these people?
Go to hell?
Go to hell.
Yeah, because see, here's the thing, folks. The Constitution is just as viable today as it was 234 years ago. You know why? Because I'm still breathing. That's why. Because if it takes my final breath, as I've mentioned before, I will make sure whatever I have to do to make sure that my Constitution, your Constitution, our shared Constitution doesn't go away. It is perpetual, it is timeless, and it is high time that we start manning up to it and start embracing it again. Mm-hmm. And anybody that wants to tell us not to or persuade us not to, you look them dead in the eye and you put your finger at their face and you tell them to go straight to hell.
Mm-hmm. So then, basically, Trump has only received half of what he claimed that he raised. I guess you could say then that his claims were half-truths. Of course, the problem with half-truths is that they simply aren't the truth.
They're also a half-lie.
Yeah. Remember, when you swear to tell the truth in court, you swear to tell the whole truth. I'd certainly say that seeking the highest office in the land is just as solemn an event as testifying before a court of law, if not more so. Now, the infamous Corey Lewandowski, is the individual who blamed the shortfall on Trump's rich friends. It's clear that the Trump personnel think we're a bunch of morons. Of course, he did say that he loves the poorly educated, he being Trump. But folks, that sort of talk is insulting. It's downright criminal when it's making excuses for failing the brave men and women who have put on the uniform to serve this country. Again, this is all rooted in a current form or phenomenon sweeping this country. This phenomenon of which I speak is failing to hold people accountable. That's certainly been the hallmark of the disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. We cannot tolerate this nonsense, especially when it comes to the well-being of our servicemen and women. I chastise Trump and say that he should be ashamed of himself, but we all know damn well that Trump has no sense of shame whatsoever. Adding insult to injury, according to the Wall Street Journal, various veterans organizations claimed that they've only received about $2.4 million in April. Apparently, most of the donations arrived in increments of about $50,000 to $100,000. This is far short of the amounts that Trump proclaimed in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. Folks, despicable is the only word that comes to mind with respect to this entire debacle.
I want to go on another rant here, but I'm going to refrain from doing so because I need to say this. As somebody who has never served in the military, who had all the aspirations in the world to serve in the military, but couldn't because of physical issues, being told, well, you blew your knees out, you probably won't even make it past basic training. I allowed myself to be discouraged by other individuals from doing something that I wanted to do by way of serving my country. And then when I hear things like this, it's beyond embarrassment. My heart breaks so hard right now because when I hear our military men and women, our veterans, and those currently serving being treated this way,
it's despicable.
It's beyond despicable. It truly is beyond despicable. Because here's the thing. I would give anything, for just to even have the opportunity to serve my country in that capacity. I robbed myself of that because I allowed myself to be persuaded not to do it. That's on me. I can't blame the people that persuaded me not to do it. I have to blame myself because I allowed them to persuade me not to do it. And what hurts even more is I see my fellow sovereign citizens allowing themselves to be persuaded to abandon their principles and forsake their obligations and their constitutional duties. I have no words that can express the amount of sadness and hurt that I feel when I hear stories like this, when I see news articles about our military being disrespected. And I'm going to say this right now, God won't be able to even help the individual that ever decides to stand in front of my face and disrespect our military to my face. Mm-hmm. And that's the only warning you're going to get. You'd better heed it.
We have to be willing to stand up for sacred honor. I know that we have repeated that so many times in these most recent programs, but it is because it is the truth. It is something that we have lost touch with as a nation and as a people. And I do lay a lot of this blame at the feet of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. Again, their twisted Fabian socialist agenda has worked totally against us, has worked in such a way as to pit American citizen against American citizen so that we're going for each other's jugulars. But what we see with this Trump camp and what we see with so many people trying to browbeat those who belong to the Never Trump movement to join this tyranny of a false unity, we see that it's all based on a Waffle House lie. And I say a Waffle House lie because Donnie really is the quaff waffle. He does not have any core principles. He does not have any values. He does not stand up for anything that matters in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And again, folks, this is why we have been warning you about him on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, for these past 10 and a half months. We knew that he would be this disastrous debacle that he is unfurling himself to be, that he is showing himself to be. And when he casts the mask off, it makes me wonder what is going to really happen. Because you know that the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media are going to turn on him. They've already started to do so.
I can't help but sit back and wonder and think, what is actually going to happen to our country, to our republic? What's it going to come down to? If people are so adamant about abandoning their principles and jumping behind somebody, or rather in this case, what they're really doing is they're jumping in front of him. Because when you have individuals like we had last night, Randy, remember Mr. Patriot _ capital M from Twitter do that flyby spamming?
Yeah, mental midget patriot. Yes,
yeah,
I know.
Yeah, and the coward, and I use that term loosely because he's not even befitting of a coward.
Yeah, let's not insult cowards.
Posted this meme. I don't even remember what it was. Oh, it was
Trump
Trumpy
as
the
Rosie
Riveter.
the Riveter.
Trumpy the Riveter. That's right.
Yeah, genderbender Trump.
Yes, genderbender Trump. Trumpy the Riveter. He posted this meme of Trump superimposed as Rosie the Riveter on both of our personal accounts and our show's account, and then blocked us. Posted it and then blocked us before we even got a chance to respond to him. Now, when individuals like that, number one, this is why I use the term coward loosely.
He's more of a poltroon.
He's more of a troglodytic cesspool drinker, is what he is. Well,
that is a poltroon.
Yeah. But the thing is, when you have individuals that are so adamant about, oh, Trump 2016, woo-woo, jump on board the Trump train, here it goes, we're leaving the station. Jump on board that train, leave the station, and go straight to hell.
Yeah.
Because individuals like you, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what your educational background is. I don't care how much money you have.
And
I don't care anything about you. You know
window
why?
Window licking is not a profession. Sorry, Patriot mental midget. Window licking is not a profession.
You mean about as much to me as a fart in a windstorm. You know why? Because you are what's wrong with this country. You are responsible, ultimately, should our republic fail. Not I, not Randy, not our first-class passengers and cherished listeners here on the Wright Flyer. You. Because of your childish, inane, mentally incapable understanding and pedantrics, you want to post some stupid little pixelated sticker on somebody's account and then run away with your quaff between your legs. You do that because you would never do that to our faces. You would never come up to either one of us, or many of our cherished listeners and passengers on the Wright Flyer, because guess what would happen to you? You would promptly be told to go straight to hell, then you would open your sniveling little flap trap.
And then you'd have to pay and suffer the consequences therefrom.
Yes.
Funny how that works.
Yes. So next time you feel the sudden urge to peel yourself off of the antiquated couch that is sitting in your mommy's basement that she inherited from her great-grandmother back in the 50s. And
God, they really breed that rapidly. Jeez.
Yeah. And if you get that insatiable need and want and urge to try something like that out in public, oh, wait a second. Never mind. You probably go to Trump rallies on a daily basis. That explains
but
it all.
let us remind you that it is not good form to date your sister. Just gonna say that right now for the Trumpaholics. Well, now, Heat Street mentioned something rather telling in their article on the subject of Trump's fiasco. They claimed that Lewandowski had refused to go on the record as to whether Trump contributed any of his own personal money to the cause. Why wouldn't he? He frequently tells us how richly he is. Is it too muchly to ask that he make donations? Oh yeah, he only cares about his own money. That's why he built special planters on his property to keep veterans from selling goods in front of Trump Coif Tower. If Trump can't even tell us whether he donated to these causes personally, how can we trust anything he says? It's all a grand spectacle and show about him. However, what he's doing here is toying with people's lives. Again, folks, we've been trying to warn you that he's a charlatan at best. He's a jackass. Sorry to be crass, but he is. To do this to our troops just really rubs me the wrong way. It shows that he's willing to go to any length to showboat. Screw that. Our troops are too important to treat like that. Hey, Trump, go to hell. On second thought, no, don't. Hell's too prime of real estate for a mendacious scoundrel such as yourself. We reserve that for deserving criminals. You don't even reach their ranks. So just buzz off and vanish into your imbecilic irrelevance.
Folks, I just want to make it clear that Randy was not insulting jackasses there at all. There's another issue I have with the Coif Waffler. I stumbled across his interview with Greta Van Lacking of Substance, and the issue of ISIS came up, and those 3 bombings in Baghdad earlier this month. And I think it was May 11th, May 12th, somewhere in there, May 10th, around that time frame when this interview was conducted. And he said something that was very telling to me. What all of his, all the Trumpty Dumpties that, are trying to put him back together again after him falling off his great bigly wall that he built, fail to comprehend. All they hear from him is, "Oh, we have to eliminate ISIS." They hear that and they're off to the races. But they never listened to what followed. And he says, we have to eliminate ISIS. He says, but the thing is, they'll just be replaced with somebody else. But we have to eliminate ISIS. So being over there, we bring all the troops home, this and that. So we'll eliminate ISIS, whatever. What he's doing is called pandering. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about. He doesn't care about
being a politician.
He doesn't care about eliminating threats by individuals who are so afraid and scared of freedom and liberty. So much so that they will do everything that they can within their power that they can muster in their little mud huts and caves to try and destroy it. He doesn't care if it's ISIS, or if it's the Taliban, or if it's North Korea taking over. So long as he gets ISIS,
he praised North Korea. He once praised China for the Tiananmen Square incident.
Yes. And
he is an authoritarian.
And the thing is, he says ISIS, and he focuses everything on ISIS, but then turns right around, so everybody holds their attention on that, and then he slips it in. Well, we can eliminate them, but they're going to be replaced with somebody else. So, we spent $5 trillion over there, roughly, on this war. It's a big war, skirmish and everything. We spent a lot of money, $5 trillion. So, yeah, we can eliminate ISIS, but they're just going to be replaced with somebody else. Why not take that $5 trillion and rebuild our infrastructure and real estate here? Why not take that $5 trillion and utilize it to better equip our military and use it to implement things that are good, like laws that will uphold our Constitution, and take the shackles off of our military, let them defeat ISIS and everybody else that wants to come on down the pipe. In fact, if he's such a great real estate tycoon, why doesn't he just talk about, annexing Iraq and Iran and claiming them for the United States?
Because
why
I
not?
don't think you can read words that bigly.
This is the point. I've always held this belief. The United States is supposed to be the world's superpower. After all, we are the ones that defeated the British Crown not once but twice.
Mm-hmm.
The world's largest standing army fell to the United States twice.
Mm-hmm.
That is what gives us our big cojones, folks. That is the sense of pride and ownership that enshrines our birthright, that gives us our drive to be great and to remain great. I say we act upon it. We have individual countries like Afghanistan or Iran. Iran wants to cause problems. They want to be a threat to one of our allies, Israel, saying that it would only take 8 minutes to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Guess what? We can wipe Iran off the face of the map in 4 minutes. And I say we do it.
Yeah. Well,
and
now,
then,
folks,
after they're done glowing, prime real estate will make a resort out of it.
Folks, I know that most of the news that we've covered in tonight's program has been downright depressing. Have no fear, because I'm switching gears here to bring you a bit of good news. According to the Politistic, the second police officer tried in the death of Freddie Gray has been acquitted of all charges. That's right, folks. There is still life left in our justice system. It may get a lot of things wrong, but this is an instant where it got it absolutely right. Like Jeremy and I have said before, the nation hasn't stopped being great. We just need to change the direction of government. Officer Edward Nero, unfortunate name, but Officer Nero has earned the right to breathe a sigh of relief. He is one of the 6 officers, 3 of whom are white and the other 3 are black, who was targeted by the radical activist prosecutor Marilyn Mosby. The witch hunt is failing. What's more, I think Mosby should be pursued for malicious prosecution. Mm-hmm. She violated her oath of office as an attorney. It's time we start holding those who abuse the legal system accountable for their malfeasance. America's strength comes from the self-evident truth that we are a nation of laws and not of men. When the law is abused, it serves to destabilize the entire country. Of course, that's the goal of the radical terrorist-like organization Black Lives Matters. They hate America and all for which she stands. Jeremy and I think one of the first steps we can take towards returning this country back to the path of prosperity is to demand accountability. That's what the detente wing of the gutless opposition party has failed to do all throughout this disastrous Obama regime. Accountability ensures stability. Mosby, you should be warned. One way or another, the wheels of justice will turn against you. I encourage the acquitted officers to pursue a civil suit against you and your city and the state of Maryland. Our rights are not your personal plaything, Miss Mosby.
And again, this goes right back to Title 42, Section 1983. Ta-da! There it is. It's that simple. Now, the funny thing about all this, Randy, and I shouldn't say funny, but the ironic thing about all this is when he was acquitted of all counts, instantly people are, oh, it's racism this and racism that, blah, blah, blah. It just happened to be an African American judge that was presiding over the trial.
Yeah, but they're going to say that it's the racist jury, that it's institutional racism, and that African American judge is part of the racist system. They'll come out and use these ludicrous terms like calling him an Uncle Tom, and they'll try and say that anyone who supports the system is supporting institutionalized racism. Remember that Obama himself went in front of the cameras of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media to say that racism is an inherent part of the DNA and societal fabric of the United States. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth, but that is their twisted, dark, and diabolical narrative. That is the rhetoric that they are seeking to pull the political wool over the eyes of the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty, we the people. Well, enough is enough. I am sick and tired of these people trying to fundamentally transform our nation in a way that is diametrically opposed to the supreme law of the land. We need to get back to intelligence. We need to get back to sanity. And that requires that we be self-accountable, self-responsible, and above all, self-determinant. But how can we do that when we have charlatans like Marilyn Mosby running around violating our rights carte blanche left and right? Why is there no one being held accountable in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours? This is a miscarriage of justice. You want to see the miscarriage of justice? It's the fact that terrorist organizations like Black Lives Matters are relevant and are given a spot on television and are considered an important aspect of society. They're nothing more than a cultural Marxist front hell-bent on the utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people.
Yeah. And they're not the only ones.
No,
going back to the onset of the show, the LGBT XYZ EIEIO organization, which Rubio may be a card-carrying member of. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll have to dig into that. Regretfully, but anyways, they're also a terrorist organization. Absolutely a terrorist organization. You have a so-called organization called PETA, who actually enlisted the help of actual declared terrorist organizations, domestic terrorist organizations, ALF and ALF,
Front.
Animal Liberation Front, Earth Liberation Front. To do what? They went and guess what, folks? Set off bombs in medical testing laboratories.
We should create the Quaff Waffle Liberation Front.
Yeah.
I could see that. The CWLF. Sounds like a bad shipping company.
It really does. It really does. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
But the point is, again, why do these entities exist? Because of indoctrination, revisionism, political correctness. Fabianism.
It literally comes down to Fabianism each and every time.
Yes, because we, again, have allowed ourselves as a whole to be persuaded to move out of our comfort zone, that of which abiding by and adhering to the Constitution.
Yep.
That is the original comfort zone of we the people. That is why the first three words of the Constitution are we the people. People want unity. They want all this unity. They're talking about, oh, we have to unify the party. This. Why don't we unify the people?
Through the Constitution.
Through the
Constitution. The only mechanism in which we are united. It is the only thing ever since the foundation of this nation over 230 years ago that truly unites us and unifies us. And that was by design. That was the understanding that our founding fathers had with respect to the natural law tenets that underpin our shared Constitution and our representative Republican form of government. These are self-evident truths, folks, to take the lines from our founding fathers. They are truths that cannot be denied. They cannot be swept under the rug. They are open and obvious for everyone who is looking at this in an objective fashion to see. Folks, we've always been dedicated to you here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. We bring these things to your attention because it's important to inform you of the truth. However, on top of that, we also offer practicable, real world solutions. We know that it is going to take all of us to save this country. But never fear, we can and we will save it. With that said, it's time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. We promise you that she's not targeting your rights. As always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I've been joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. Oh, and before we forget, since tomorrow is Jeremy's birthday, we will want to wish him a very happy birthday. Brother, very happy birthday.
Thank you, brother.
It is always a pleasure to do these shows with you and to have you by my side as we delve into this insanity. Folks, we also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have, either here on our YouTube page or our Google Plus page, or even on our Facebook page. Furthermore, we invite you to follow us on Twitter with the handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX. There, you'll find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of Jeremy, our Blogspot account, which features audio blogs protecting your rights, and I'll let the birthday boy tell you about the goodies on our Cafe Press account, which is also listed on the departure board.
Well, we've listed numerous various different items of merchandise on our Cafe Press account before, folks. And again, just to bring up some of them, shot glasses, drinking glasses, baseball caps, bumper stickers, window decals, license plate
Sounds like
covers.
good party favors.
Very good party favors. And you know what? Birthday gifts are appreciated and encouraged. So, again, folks, these novelties we have, they are simply there for you to show your friends, your families, your neighbors, your support. Your support for not just us here at the Wright Flyer, but support for yourselves. Support for yourselves in unity with each other and solidarity with each other, of exhibiting, having a working, clear understanding and knowledge of our shared United States Constitution.
It's because only together can we save this country. And remember, it's on our shoulders to do so. That is why we come to the air and speak into these microphones to keep you informed. We do it to empower you because we care about what happens to this country. We care about its people. With that said, again, folks, thank you for tuning in to the Wright Flyer. We'll see you again next time. Do take care.